Again, I'm Cara. I'm the founder and executive director of Independent Lifestyles. You may be familiar with the saying, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you're getting. It's a saying that we must take to heart when evaluating the current system under which people with disabilities in Minnesota are supposed to be provided with services and supports. The time has come for Minnesota to redefine the face of ability and to ensure that Minnesotans with disabilities are no longer second-class citizens. The recent series of articles in the Star Tribune which articulate the plight of Minnesotans with disabilities could not be timelier. They eloquently reveal the disturbing truth that has flown under the radar for far too long. The state of services to people with disabilities in Minnesota is in crisis. The problem, as I see it, is that we keep directing funding to a broken and insufficient system. It truly is time to stop doing what we've always been doing and to invest in what actually works. After horrifying truths of unspent money and higher than ever needs, last year the legislature directed counties to spend 97% of those allocations. Still, it's not happening. The excuses change slightly, the deadlines are reissued, the money is reallocated year after year, and people with all disabilities keep suffering because of it. It's time for change. It's time for community-based solutions such as Centers for Independent Living to be given the opportunity to take the lead in ensuring independence and choices for people with disabilities in Minnesota. Since CIL's inception over a quarter century ago, CILs have always been transparent, accountable, extremely cost-effective, and most importantly, consumer-controlled. With 8 Centers for Independent Living in Minnesota, we have the ability to cover the state of Minnesota with consumer-controlled, cost-effective, and outcome-based independent living services for a fraction of what is allocated to the state each year, which continues to prove itself ineffective. I implore you to stop doing what we've always been doing and take this critical juncture to invest more profoundly in Centers for Independent Living. Collectively, the 8 CILs are currently receiving less funding than we did in 2008. Yet despite that, we continue to do more with less and have doubled the numbers served. We have the ability and the proven track record to ensure people with disabilities live as independently as possible at a fraction of the cost, a fraction of the red tape, a fraction of the waste and despair that the current system offers. It's time for Minnesota to be innovative leaders who think outside the box and take the revolutionary step of investing heavily in what has already been proven to be effective and to create the necessary opportunities for independence for all who experience any type of disability. Long before I became an administrator, I started my career as a social worker because I wanted to help people. I quickly found that most of the traditional supports and services do not empower the people that they're designed to uplift. They become so mired in bureaucracy and so far from the front lines of serving people that no one remembers what the goal was in the first place. That's why I've chosen to spend my career of almost 25 years in a Center for Independent Living, because we have the capacity to truly achieve change with those who have any type of disability. CILs have been begging for a minimum funding level of $500,000 for 10 years, which would require an additional investment of $692,000 in additional funding for the 8 organizations. These are old, outdated minimum funding levels and sadly just decimal dust of the unspent waste being allocated to the current broken system. Why would we consciously choose to invest in a system that costs all Minnesotans top dollar and produces little? People with disabilities in Minnesota are living with little or no choice about where they live, with whom, or about where they work or recreate. 16 years after Olmsted, we finally and painfully became one of the last states in the nation to achieve an Olmsted plan. It won't be until at least 2019 that counties will even begin to have individualized plans. CILs could achieve this immediately. There would be public outrage and riots in the streets if other minority populations receive the treatment or lack thereof that Minnesotans with disabilities experience. Separate is not equal. We are spending millions and millions to isolate and segregate people with disabilities unnecessarily when it would cost a mere fraction to assist them in achieving the independent living skills to live independently with dignity and choice. So I ask you, is the solution so simple that we fail to see the forest for the trees? Boots on the ground, community-based services and advocacy that CILs offer are the answer. We fill the gaps and holes that are left gaping in the current system. Imagine what we could accomplish if we stopped doing what we've always done and invested instead in what works, in what is transparent, in what is cost-effective, and what is consumer-controlled. People with disabilities in Minnesota have not historically had the voice required to change this broken system. So it's up to us, community leaders, legislators, to be innovative, to stop going with the flow, and truly lead by insisting on change that not only empowers people, but spends taxpayers' dollars effectively. It really is that simple. When people are allowed to live as independently as possible, are treated with dignity and respect, when they're provided timely and meaningful supports, they thrive. They work, they utilize much less health care. They require much less costly living environments. It's a win-win that cannot be denied. When we understand that, when we truly know better, I think we have an obligation to do better. We cannot claim Minnesota nice with people with disabilities, who are 20% of our population, are living in fear, isolation, degradation, and waiting years upon years to receive services and supports that would move them and the state as a whole forward. The time has come for Minnesota to stop doing what we've always done and to invest in what actually works, community-based organizations such as Centers for Independent Living. Let us be part of the solution and let Minnesota become a leader in innovative and changing how services and supports are provided to people of all disabilities. I respectfully ask for your support and leadership in redirecting funding and therefore redefining independent living in Minnesota. Thank you.